I'm Mr. MegaManFan. This is Genesis Does, and you're looking at Wiz and Liz, developed by Raising Hell Software, published by Psygnosis. Before I decided to do it for this week's episode, I can say with a high degree of certainty, 99% or more, that I have never played this game despite owning it for years. I was not aware of anything about it before doing the research to make you this episode. Catch 'em if you can. Join Wiz and Liz, those crazy wizards, in their frantic race to rescue their wayward wabbits. Not even rabbits, wabbits, like it's Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny. Wabbit season, duck season, wabbit season, duck season, duck season. Shoot, I say, shoot! Poor Daffy Duck. He always gets blasted in the face. But here we have the cartridge for Wiz and Liz, a game which also came out on the Commodore Amiga as well as the Sega Mega Drive, but I don't have an exact release date for it, just 1993. Ryan will be happy to see that I have the instruction manual and I'm actually looking at it. The A button drops through a level and the B and C button jump. There you go, Ryan. I'm paying attention this time. Who's responsible for this? Martin Chudley, Mike Waterworth, Matt Furness, Sean Hollingworth, John White, Richard Blickcliffe, Mark Sy, Keith Hopwood, and Andy Smith. Well, they wanted to be recognized, so I'll give them that due. Oh, and the U.S. packaging was by Harry Bernard. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit more about Psygnosis before we get into what Wiz and Liz was all about, because they have quite a long and storied history right up until their closure in 2012, but I'm getting ahead of myself. They started in Liverpool, England in 1984. Jonathan Ellis, Ian Heatherton, and David Lawson were the ones behind the formation of the company. Now, those men are spiritually successors to the Imagine Software Company, which had planned to release a ZX or ZX, as they say over there, series of games that were called Mega Games. You may have seen a documentary about this. One of those most infamous games was called Bandersnatch, and it was going to be the greatest video game that had ever been published for a home computer. But financial difficulties had just wiped out that company, and they were never able to publish it. I think the cartridge itself was going to be way too expensive with the extra chips they had to put inside. It was quite the fiasco. But they did have some talented programmers and developers and software engineers that were at Imagine Software. So some of them packed up their bags, formed Psygnosis, and they continued on. And they had quite a bit of success both as a developer and publisher. You may know them best for the Lemmings series of games, which even Wikipedia considers to be their most successful series. But that's not the end of the story for Psygnosis. When the PlayStation was coming around and Sony was looking to break big into the video game home console market, they needed someone to develop software. So they bought Psygnosis, and they became a division of Sony. They were completely a subsidiary, and they were called Studio Liverpool, eventually Sony Computer Entertainment Studio Liverpool, and they continued on in that guise, developing and publishing games like the Wipeout series, which became a multiple platform Sony title that is still well regarded to this day. It was on everything from PlayStation to PlayStation 2 to 3 to the PSP. I'm not sure it's ever had any entries for the current generation console, but that's not to say that it couldn't at some point. Unfortunately, despite all their success and the general quality of games they developed or published, Sony was finally ready to give up the ghost in 2012. August 22nd, 2012, they closed Studio Liverpool, and that was it for the history of Psygnosis, both independently and as a wholly owned subsidiary. Although some of the former employees formed new studios, one's called Fire Sprite and the other's called Playrise Digital, so they do live on to some degree. As for Wiz and Liz itself, You may have picked up on this by looking at this game from the gameplay footage I recorded, but it's a cute platformer that is deceptive in that it doesn't seem like it's difficult at first because there are no enemies here. Nothing really hurts you per se, but the challenge isn't necessarily whether you live or die. It's how many items you can collect, because once you pick up the Wascally Wabbits and they're safe in the possession of Wiz and or Liz, you get bonus items that float up out of the Wabbits, like letters that spell out a magical spell, or bonus fruits that you get when you finish the level and go through the exit door. It gets a multiplier for however many you have, or a time bonus so that you can keep running through the level for longer. And the real challenge is not whether you live or die, it's how much of a bonus score you can get for all of these items at the end, with the blue Wabbits being the most difficult to find and the biggest bonus. So that's what you're going for here. It's sort of a race the clock challenge, but it's also sort of a high score challenge. You can look at it that way, and maybe the only harrowing part of it is when you're running low on time up there in the upper right hand corner and it's telling you find a clock before time runs out. It's like the only danger that you ever feel at any point. Otherwise, you're just challenging yourself to do better and to get more items and to get a higher score. Is that enough? I think it is. I thought this was too kid-friendly at first. I mean, it's a rated G for general audiences type game. It's very focused on being cute and cuddly and non-threatening. So I thought maybe this wouldn't be much fun. It would be too kiddie for me. But as it turns out, the platforming, which is very fast and very enjoyable to do, and the collecting goals, which is familiar to anybody who's ever played any Sonic or Mario game, make it work. It doesn't suffer for the fact that it's kid-friendly. I actually spent more time playing Wiz and Liz than I expected to the point that I actually cut off the footage at the end because I felt like, okay, this video is going to go way too long. If I keep playing Wiz and Liz, I'm going to have to just stop at some point here and let you all discover what the rest of the game is like for yourself. And do you want to discover it? Because that's one of the things I always like to bring up on Genesis Does. Is it affordable, or is it going to set you back an arm, a leg, and another arm on top of that? So we'll look it up live right now as I'm recording this voiceover and find out the current value as of the recording of this video. It may have gone up or down by the time you watch, but it is not the most expensive Sega Genesis title. It's also not the cheapest Sega Genesis title, but we're not talking astronomical amounts here. Loose, $13. Complete, $23. Brand new, if you could actually find it like that, $44. So I think loose, it might be reasonable at around that price. It's gone as low as $6 in recent memory, going back to late 2019, and it's gone for as high as $23, also late 2019. So I think you can find a happy medium somewhere in there. If you're a bargain hunter and willing to wait or snipe an auction at the last second, you might be able to get this one for under $10. And I think there is enough fun to be had here that you could do that. You must now save all the Wabbits. Yeah, occasionally it posts these challenges where it's like, don't just complete the spell, don't just collect things. Now you have to get every single Wabbit in the level before the time runs out. And if it does, that's what happens. You've got 3 lives, you lose 1. I don't know if there's a way to collect extra lives. Maybe if you get enough points, you can reach that, but that never happened to me in the course of playing this. Oh, and as for historical value of Wiz and Liz, It's actually gone up quite a bit from, let's see, 2008 to 2020. Back in the late 2000s, it was $1 or $2 loose. So now, in 12 years' time since then, it's gone up to over 10. But again, a bargain hunter can get it for under 10 if they try hard enough. And maybe you'll just run across it when you're out game hunting. You'll find it in somebody's car boot at their trunk sale, or you'll find it at a pawn shop with somebody that doesn't know anything about old video games and marks them all $1 each. Keep your eye out for things like that. And never be afraid to pick up anything that's not a sports game if it's marked for a low price. Because you never know, even if it's one that you already have, you could still use it for trade bait later. Or if you're in a retro swap box group like I am, it might go around. You might have something somebody else needs and somebody might have something you need. So go ahead and pick up those $1 games if they're not sports games. Maybe even if they are sports games. I'm not telling you not to get sports games, but I am saying sports games are way more common. You're going to go to any pawn shop, flea market, thrift, whatever. You're going to see a lot of MLB games. You're going to see a lot of Madden games. You're going to see a lot of NHL games. And if they want more than $1 for just about any of those, you're probably paying too much because they are not in short supply. Whereas games like Wiz and Liz, I'm not saying it's in short supply, but it's certainly not going to be as common as a sports title. So the real reason to get a sports title would be something that's got a certain cachet value, like Scott DeWaz doing Dick Vitale's awesome, baby. Then you might want to get that just for the notoriety of it. Or something that's just fun, generally speaking, because it's arcade action that you are nostalgic for and remember well. Something like NBA Jam or NFL Blitz. But I digress. Back to Wiz and Liz. What did they say about it in the day? How did the contemporary reviews consider it? What were their thoughts? Game Rankings gave it 82.5%. Sega 16 gave it 9 out of 10. There don't seem to be a lot of reviews of Wiz and Liz out there. Maybe this game is a little obscure. Hell, it was obscure even to me before I played it. I had it and I didn't even remember having it or know that much about it before I played it. So it's possible that this is a somewhat overlooked game outside of the hardcore collector scene. Although, according to Wikipedia, which again, grain of salt, you never know how reliable they may or may not be, it said that this was featured as a bonus game on the competitive gaming television show Games World, which was broadcast on the Sky One channel in the United Kingdom. Players took turns to play the bonus game, collecting the blue wabbits, and the highest scorer won that challenge. I'd have to look on YouTube to see if any episodes of Games World can be found. So I've never watched that show, never heard of that show, but my curiosity is now piqued. It does make sense that they would be on a UK show considering Psygnosis was based in Liverpool, so they probably had some sort of arrangement like, here's a game we developed or here's a game we published. Feel free to use it on your show. We'll give you some promotional copies. You can give away copies. And we'll have this nice little working relationship between friends and mates. And we'll have a pint afterward and we'll all laugh about it. So, good times. I'm sure that was some sort of marketing promotional arrangement. I don't know the exact details, so I'm just guessing. Anyway, Wiz and Liz. Should you get it? I would say at least try to, but give it a shot in emulation first. You know the different ways you can do it. If you've modded or hacked your Genesis Mini, it'll work on there. If you've got an emulator, I'm sure you can find a copy somewhere. Your analog Mega SG, find a copy, put it on an SD card if you've got a jailbreak, and you can play it that way. Give it a try first. I'm not going to tell you it's for you per se, because it does lean pretty heavily into the whole wascally wabbits thing, and if you're somebody who's annoyed by cartoon humor, cute collecting games, maybe this isn't for you. If you're a Grand Theft Auto Vice City type of person that only likes rated M for mature games, you could pass on Wiz and Liz. But I think this is a pretty fun game and more obscure than most. Thanks as always for watching.